This is the end of Refugee Week. To mark the occasion, Margaret has asked that we consider what it means to be a stranger in a strange land by reflecting on a number of images from The Arrival, a graphic novel by Shaun Tan. Here is the full version. We'll just look at some excerpts from it. But to help us to do so, I think it's useful to understand some of the ideas behind the book, as explained by the author himself. And I quote, "Looking over much of my previous work as an illustrator and writer, I realise that I have a recurring interest in notions of belonging, particularly the finding or losing of it. Growing up in Perth, Western Australia, where it's fairly unusual to be half Chinese, may have compounded this, as I was constantly being asked, 'Where are you from?' And to which my response of 'here' only prompted deeper inquiry. Growing up, I did have a vague sense of separateness, an unclear notion of identity, on top of that traditionally contested concept of what it is to be Australian, or worse, un-Australian, whatever that might mean. And this was uppermost in my mind during the long period of work on The Arrival, a book that deals with the theme of the migrant experience. And given my preoccupation with strangers in strange lands, this was an obvious subject to tackle. A story about somebody leaving their home to find a new life in an unseen country where even the most basic details of ordinary life are strange, confronting, or confusing. In seeking to reimagine such circumstances, my original idea for a fairly conventional picture book developed into quite a different kind of structure. I found myself working on a graphic novel. I decided a longer, more fragmented visual sequence without any words would best capture the feeling of uncertainty. And in The Arrival, the absence of any written description plants the reader more firmly in the shoes of the immigrant character. There is no guidance as to how the images might be interpreted, and we must ourselves search for meaning and seek familiarity in a world where such things are either scarce or concealed. In order to best understand what it's like to travel to a new country, I wanted to create a fictional place, equally unfamiliar to readers of any age or background. A place where people dress strangely, apartment fixtures are confounding, and ordinary street activities are very peculiar. In my nameless country, peculiar creatures emerge from pots and bowls. Doors and cupboards conceal their contents, and all around are notices that beckon, invite, or maybe even warn in loud, indecipherable alphabets. I am rarely interested in symbolic meanings, where one thing stands for something else, because this dissolves the power of fiction to be reinterpreted. I'm more attracted to the kind of intuitive resonance or poetry we can enjoy when looking at pictures and understanding what we see without necessarily being able to articulate it. One of the great powers of storytelling is that it invites us to walk in other people's shoes for a while. But perhaps more importantly, it invites us to contemplate our own shoes also. What conclusions we draw from this are unlikely to be easily summarised, which is all the more reason to think further on the connections between people and places and what we might mean when we talk about belonging." End of quote. So let's view these images, and they are indeed very strange and confusing, and at sometimes they're disturbing. But let's reflect on what it means to be a new arrival in a foreign land where you don't know the language, the customs, or even anyone who lives there. The Arrival by Shaun Tan.